Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today I've got Kelly Schmidt back in the house.
Yay!
Hey there, she's our regular contributor. And today we're going to dive into a real, this is a topic that's probably been around as long as I've been a girl, which has been my whole life, right? It's our weight and our waistline and that constant, for some of us more so than others, but it does seem to be something that can weigh on us. And then when we throw in, obviously diabetes, you and I have been living with diabetes through our teen years when this topic of weight loss gets even more sensitive. And
Yeah.
then as we're aging, it's getting even a little bit more confusing about what those expectations are. So, this reminds me too of this is probably something you hear a lot too, Kelly. We hear this all the time. And this is a quote, but this could be me saying it too, because I remember back in my perimenopause days when, again, I'm doing all the things that I've always done, and now suddenly it's not working. I'm frustrated, and they just can't put their finger on it.
Yeah.
And, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I hear it from clients. I hear it from friends.
Hmm.
I'm more working with people in their late 30s through 40s, maybe touch of 50. So it's a lot of this perimenopause. And I
Yeah.
came across a stat that in perimenopause, women tend to gain 1.5 pounds per year. And
Mm.
it's when they're doing everything the same.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot to unpack there. I'm excited for this conversation. And I think out of the gate, you hit a few important points that with type 1 diabetes, we're more sensitive to um, altered relationships with food, but also as women. The
Yeah.
average age of a female to go on a diet, their first diet is age 9. And that's my daughter. And that's wild. And now, as a dietitian, I'm in private practice, but I also do strength coaching. But I now do a tween workout where I can get into their heads right away and help influence, like, try to eat more mother nature and try to not like read into all these magazines or whatever the social media might be saying. But going on tangents here, but we are a vulnerable population with our hormones with type 1 as females. So
Mhm.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
dive in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's start with the first thing I know that I've noticed, and that with further education, just understanding insulin. Again, back in my early days, I didn't, I took insulin. I've been taking it for many years. I never really understood how it worked in the body, and this is definitely something we can talk into today about. And a lot of people know this, women included, especially in our space, that insulin is a fat storing hormone, which is, oh, sounds so bold and oh gosh, right?
Yeah.
So that can instantly change our relationship with our disease and the fact that, hey, guess what? We're in charge with how much insulin we take every day. We
Yeah.
really are. I did an episode a few weeks back with Keanu Drew about insulin omission, and that's a great one to refer back to. I believe it was episode 106, if I'm remembering that right. It was powerful. And, we're not going to dive too much about that side of it, but I think this is a good idea to think about as well as you and I kind of unpack, the whys and what we can do and all of that. But still maintaining a good, healthy relationship with how much we need insulin, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
definitely worthy of saying is humans, diabetic or not, cannot survive without insulin. So it's important that we're not omitting it and that
Hmm.
I think the takeaway is it's important for us to manage blood sugars first and then attack weight loss
Yeah.
second because insulin it can dictate how much we need to eat and so much more.
Hmm. Hmm. So and this is a question that I got, and these are some questions that you and I have both gotten from the community. So we're going to be talking through those a little bit as we're talking today. So what's the best way to spot if insulin resistance is hormone related?
Yeah. I think
That's, yeah.
yeah. What's the best way to spot if insulin resistance is hormone related? I think something you've already mentioned is I'm doing about everything the same,
Yeah.
but I'm finding um, I need more insulin. And this is actually something I had just recently experienced with myself. I was like, huh, my basal's going up. What
Mm.
is it related to? Is it related to my estrogen? Estrogen, that's the queen bee. When
Mm-hmm.
we have her, we're insulin sensitive. When she's low, we're insulin resistant. So that's something to consider. But with that, usually when our sex hormones are changing, so is our sleep. So it's important to dial in both of those or look really closely at both of those. Um, but what would you say? Is the same thing
Yeah,
in mine?
I think it really is symptoms. So just like you say, when we can look, kind of examine our routine and what we're doing and kind of checking it off, I guess, and saying, and I think that, and this is a touchy thing because we don't want to, we know we've got to manage what we eat and what we dose and all of that. But there's a fine line there with micromanaging it and being too
Yeah,
diligent. So I think it's really just being aware of what's happening, if anything's changed, and if there's anything else to point it to.
yeah,
But just like you say, we can look to see other symptoms that are speaking with the fact that we're becoming more insulin resistant. Estrogen is dropping. Obviously, our age, changes in our monthly cycle, all those other symptoms that you and I both talk a lot about and help women with. It's just creating that awareness. So
yeah,
we can't always assume. And I think the first thing, I was just talking to a friend of mine over the weekend. She doesn't live with diabetes, but her and I are about the same age. She just started on hormone replacement. And it was amazing. I felt very, very lucky to just be able to spend that time with her, and that she felt comfortable with being very honest and very raw about something that's very tender to her. And she has stubborn weight, and she is a well-educated, she's in
yeah,
the health space. But just to see the frustration that is just kind of running through her veins where she just can't get to the bottom of it. So
yeah,
yeah, and it's funny because we talked about a lot of the things, and again, as a friend, I wasn't necessarily talking to her as a coach, even though she knows I am a coach, but it's just, just kind of putting the stuff out there, giving her
yeah,
ideas, maybe some other things to consider. And again, we're going to talk about more about this today. So we're getting everybody warmed up to this topic about really all the things to be looking at.
yeah,
Um, yeah.
definitely. And as you're explaining that story too,
Mm-hmm.
weight loss as a woman with moving hormones is hard. And then weight loss as a woman with type 1 is a whole different conversation. And I think one benefit of us both having type 1s is we truly understand the dance. And, I just think of a client, she came to me and she's like, I can't lose weight. My trainer has me on X, Y, and Z. And I was like, but they don't understand your hormones and they don't understand your disease state. That has to be an important, large part of the puzzle. So, so
Yeah,
yeah.
and I light up when I see, because I have a gym membership, and I know you work out at a gym, and you host and run classes. I don't know about you, but I am ultra aware nowadays because I'm more aware of all these different things
Yeah.
that are impacting our weight. So you see these women that are just they're working so hard. They're probably doing two classes a day. I was
Yeah.
speaking to a lady probably 6 months ago who she's in menopause, and she had that 10 pounds that she gained, and she's, I mean, in all fairness, I mean, she's very lean. You wouldn't look at her and say that she had a weight problem, but again, in our minds we think, oh, if there's 10 pounds here that never was. So she's doing two classes in the morning, not the one. Early, getting
Yeah.
up early, doing those two hard hit cardio classes. And she says, all I'm eating until lunch is berries. So again, you and I, we can look at this and say, oh man, but they just don't get it. There's so many pieces to her puzzle. Um, and that's, definitely some things that we can all learn, or just, and I think we got to keep our minds open to it again, because we were always taught as calories in, calories out.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah,
And so much different. And
so much different.
already through these brief stories we're sharing, I
Mm-hmm.
think there's just such this dire desire to cut that weight. And women are going to extremes to do
Yeah.
that. And they're doing what thinks natural or the right thing, but there's strategies. There's definitely strategies at play. Of course, there's calories. You want to be in a slight deficit, some shape or form around it, but you
Hmm.
also want to have your macronutrients dialed into your unique needs. And something I'm excited to get into is just really optimizing gut health. Because
Yeah.
optimizing the gut optimizes the liver, optimizes those sex hormones, and so
Yeah.
much more. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah, yeah, let's go. Okay. Well, let's start with why common approaches like as you were saying, the low carb, the intermittent fasting, the calorie restrictions, they often backfire, especially for those of us who, you know, dose insulin every day. So
Yeah.
why is that suddenly not working anymore?
Yeah, there's much more to the story. I think the practical information that might be obvious is very black and white, but there's a lot more color that needs to be sifted through. When I help a client with their health, and you know this, but I might lay it out here on this podcast today to help people remember things more clearly and have some strong takeaways. But
Mhm.
I try to go inflammation hunting, or more so with type 1 diabetes, insulin resistance hunting, and they're
Mhm.
almost one and the same. But I think about five main pillars and which of those pillars that person needs the most support on. And this is my
Mhm.
word of grace.
I love it.
After
Hmm.
12 years of private practice coaching a lot of people, I've came up with this grace method to help people get to the root of their needs. But quickly, the grace is gut health routines, which are so essential for blood sugar control, but also weight management,
Hmm.
also for helping the body feel safe. Adrenals, the lady doing cardio, 2 classes back to back just on berries, she is just wiping out her cortisol.
Right.
And people are
Right.
not putting enough attention on self care and cortisol, which is a hormone that's stimulated from our adrenals that help us with our fight or flight or stress response. It's usually depleted, and that's usually the plug that's holding back weight loss success. But to finish off this acronym, gut, routines, adrenals, clean living or liver support, our fat burning organ. And then last but not least, exercise. I think exercise is as important as what we eat because it's such a good domino that helps stimulate mindset and positive feelings, really,
Yeah.
and so much
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there's the practical advice, but with type 1 diabetes, we're not a simple story. There's a lot to go with it, and we need to go deeper. And those are the 5 pillars that I usually scope through, identify what someone's weak link is, and how to support it better
Yeah.
with health and weight loss overall.
Yeah. And you brought up a couple good things. Obviously, adrenal, your body reacting to um, that protection. Our body hangs on to fat,
Yeah,
weight to
yeah,
protect us.
yeah,
As women, we were designed to carry children and to bear have that extra weight for
yeah,
those times of pregnancy. And our biology doesn't change. We're still the humans we were created from day one. And I think, we're just living in a faster pace, higher expectation society that doesn't fit in what we want right now. So, we're not always happy with the fact that our body wants to retain it. But like you said, stress. And let's dive into the gut health because I just know, and this is something that you are really, really an expert in and that you've really helped a lot of us on. So what happens with the body when
yeah,
that gut is not happy? And
yeah,
why is it's basically hanging on to calories?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. That's kind of part of it.
Yeah. So with aging and perimenopause and menopause, our 30s, mid 30s, 40s, and 50s, hormones are shifting, but this is where things can be exasperated, including gut health. And what might need optimized there can be different from one person to the next. And let's just start with the basics. We need to, something I was going to add as you were uh, responding to what I had to say just a moment ago was our body needs to feel safe to lose weight. Our body must feel safe to lose weight. And when we sit down for a meal, we need to be in a calm state, or else we can drive that cortisol. We can deplete our digestive enzymes. We can decrease the absorption of that healthy food that we have in front of us overall. So we need to, one, have our mind right before we sit down, chew our food. But then when it comes to digestion, with age, we lose hydrochloric acid. Our hydrochloric acid can go down. Stress can drive that down too, but also those digestive enzymes. And those are essential for optimal digestion. And we need to have optimal nutrients in our body. We need optimal nutrient status to lose weight. Something that I was fishing in my mind that I wanted to make sure I laid out for us is, it's kind of weird to hear, but losing weight is a form of death. Losing weight is a form of death because the body needs to be safe to lose that weight. Otherwise, it's holding on because it's fearing starvation or scarcity or X, Y, and Z. So as we, are working hard on weight loss, maybe hiring a coach or trying to be consistent with some habits, we need to think about self-care, stress release, digestion, really metabolizing the stress we're feeling as we put in the effort in weight loss. But coming back to gut health is, the gut matters so much because we want to absorb nutrients to fill nutrient gaps, and we want to digest our food optimally, not rise in cortisol from creating food sensitivities from being in such a stressed state or not having enough enzymes or acid. But we also want to optimize that gut bacteria that can create insulin sensitivity and lower levels of inflammation. And that was basically an elevator pitch of what's going on in the gut, but I tried to keep it high level. But I think the big takeaway is your gut health matters in weight loss, and it can be very much the underlying thing that people are not looking at closely enough to get the results they want and deserve.